I don't know how this is possible, but I absolutely love it, boys. Every single day, pirate software situation just gets that much worse, boys. And this time, his ex-roommate is gonna go full scorched earth. How bad it's gonna be? Well, I can't wait and see. Hopefully, a lot of truth bombs are gonna drop. I personally hope that we get a little bit more on you know what I'm gonna say, don't you? I hope we get a little bit more information on how Pirate Software worked at Blizzard for 7 years. Because I don't think people talk about that nearly as much as they should.
I believe that the reason that Kronos gave was insincere. That is my personal belief. You
Right.
know, they're getting money on top of buying these bits. They're essentially getting bribed to do this. So, to me, that's illicit. To me, that should absolutely be a bannable offense. But Twitch is not going to enforce it.
Recently, I posted
Of course, Twitch is not gonna ban Pirate Software, by the way, obviously.
a video talking about Pirate Software seeming to collude with his lead moderator Kronos to inflate and extend the duration of his hype train. Now, if you'd like more info on this situation, here's a link to said video. But to continue on, I had told you guys that I would potentially be speaking with a lawyer, as well as the fact that I'd reached out to someone that was working with Twitch. Now, that lead ended up falling short with the person working at Twitch, but I got very lucky and ended up running into someone who had worked at Twitch for 8 years and actually had expertise with the term
8 years? That's one more year longer than Pirate Software worked at Blizzard. Holy, this is gonna be a professional.
terms of service. Their name here is Eludiana, and they were also an ex-Blizzard employee as well as ex-Twitch.
Oh no! Pirate Software's walls are crumbling, boys. Oh no!
And now what's even more interesting is they actually were working with Pirate Software when he worked at Blizzard. Matter of fact, she was his kind of higher up. But not only that, she was also
Oh no, she's gonna... If she tells us that he was legitimately the most Nepo baby ever, that she got word that no one can touch him, you can't speak back... Please.
an ex-roommate of his, and she has a lot to talk about. Now, for the sake of you guys, the viewers, I wanted to break this down. So in this video, we're specifically going to be going over the Twitch terms of service breakages. So that's what's going to be in the contents of this video. And then I'll be releasing a secondary video to go over her experiences with him as a roommate, as well as working with him. And you'll get to hear about
Oh, that's the one I want, boys. That's the one I want.
how he would choose not to do his job and instead would browse Reddit. Yeah, last 10 seconds before we...
I mean, not even nearly remarkable or unexpected. He probably was browsing like a furry Reddit or something.
jump in, consider subscribing. Really helps out the channel, and it's just a click for you guys. And like the video if you end up finding the information useful, want to help boost it in the algorithm. It really does help me a great deal.
Like my video, because I was not the drama kid, you know, in high school.
But with all that being said, hope you enjoyed the video and enjoyed the interview. So let's kind of shift our focus over to talking about the more recent stuff. A recent video that I had done had kind of brought to light that there was some exchange DMs between Pirate Software and his lead moderator Kronos that are kind of, I would say, clearly...
Why is this opened? Well, what is the point of... Oh, okay.
Implying that they were kind of working together. Matter of fact, even with the previous messages that Kronos showed, one of which is edited, and apparently he's just not available right now, but in the next few days I should be able to see when he edited that message. But regardless, this hype train was kept alive by, at the very least, from what we see here, Kronos. And I went through in that video and did quite a hefty amount of speculation, and where that specifically there was part of that with the terms of service, and that is kind of a bit of why we got in touch. If you could, so what is your experience with Twitch, the terms of...
Again, the summary is, honestly, again, I am an impartial person. I love making fun of Pirate Software, but, I mean, the guy's such a fucking failure that there's no need to lie about him or make stuff up. I mean, I wonder when people are gonna dig up his history, because a lot of people actually think that this is like a new thing, that the Pirate Software drama has been happening only for a month. Yeah, Some people do not know that we have been following Pirate Software's inevitable destruction for more than a year at this point. Okay? His history is insane. If you don't know, by the way, his history, just go to my channel, write in Pirate Software, and start from the bottom. Oh my god, are there so many things to talk about him. DDoSing, meeting up with minors and then lying about that sort of stuff. The Nepo baby scandals, him abusing people, him stealing. There's so many things. Okay? If people think that this is what Pirate Software's dramas are about, you have not seen anything, my sweet dear summer child. You are in for a ride. But again, considering I'm fair, I don't need to lie about Pirate Software or do any of these things. As far as I know, I have always been representing Pirate Software truthfully. And I will say about this. I don't think necessarily that it's 100% visible that they conspired to keep the hype train going. Even though that seems very plausible. I don't see definite proof of it. Pirate Software could just release all of the conversation because it's right there on Discord, still accessible to him. Oh, but he's not going to do that, obviously. And that's pretty much it.
Service, things like that.
Okay, this is the fun part. So I was the sole UX writer for Twitch. What that means is I touched every department at Twitch. That includes things like terms of service enforcement. That includes all of the...
By the way, looking at her, yeah, this is the I've worked at Blizzard / Twitch xenotype.
Contracts. I dealt a lot with trying to convince a lot of...
And I'm pretty sure that this is actually a woman. I didn't want to bring it up, but I have doubts. I'm not gonna lie, boys. Not even being mean, I just have doubts.
Teams that they needed to be more explicit with their terms, and a lot of the time they weren't because they wanted to be as concise as possible, which makes sense because, you know, users don't want to read anything. Like, that is just a thing. So we have to have an understanding in the terms of service that things need to be taken more or less literally. When we're speaking on terms of inflating numbers, we mean things like view counts. It means the actual functional numbers that would actually matter for metrics. Like, it has nothing to do with things like donations, like
or a hype train level.
Yes.
Or a hype train level.
Okay.
Like, it should not...
That's what I understood, by the way. And also, these rules, I hate talking about these rules so much because most people are fucking stupid. They don't understand anything that's written in Twitch terms of services. I don't understand half of it, okay? And honestly, me understanding half of it is pretty good, I guess, in general. Most people don't understand anything. For God's sakes, we have literally mouth breathers like Tectone breaking the most explicitly black on white written rules on Twitch. AK, hey, you can't promote OF on this site. And he does it for another person, and then he spazzes out and says, Twitch banned me for no reason, I did nothing. Like, listen. The Twitch rules and terms are gonna be a painful issue for all times, okay?
Have anything to do with that because Hype Train is one of those very pay-to-win systems. If
Right.
you can pay to win, you pay to win. It doesn't matter where it comes from.
Okay.
Now, there is something to be said about if Pirate himself was using an alt account to inflate the numbers, that could potentially be an argument. But if it was his mods, it is not unusual for mods themselves to contribute to hype trains. So if they could do that in the first place, they are more than welcome to sustain the hype train.
So it's not typical for a mod to go out of their way to create an alternate account to do this thing.
Yeah, there are, and I don't want to say this is normal. Like,
Sure.
This is not something that everybody does. However, something that some people will elect to do, especially if they want to protect their privacy. You'll see this with, let's say, e-girls. All right? Like, people will create alt accounts to give huge donations to certain accounts that they don't necessarily want to have attention drawn to their mains with, whatever their reason.
Oh, that is something I did suspect it most likely is, because people are not okay. This is why there was a thing about anonymous donation options, because people don't want to donate and associate themselves. Even no one gives a shit, typically. People just don't want to associate themselves with bad things, even though they actually support them. And yes, Twitch wars would definitely be one of that thing.
Reasoning maybe behind it. I believe that the reason that Kronos gave was insincere. That is my personal belief.
I actually agree with you, and the reason
Yeah.
that I agree with you is because 100 tier 1 subs had already been donated by his main account, which he said as much
Yes.
about.
And also, if you're a creator,
Yes, the fact that he makes an alternative alt account to do this, hides it from other mods and whatnot. Yeah,
an alternate account, you do not say, "This is my alternate account."
Which
also true.
yeah, he's a grown ass man. He can do what he wants with his money. I don't think I've ever heard of a grown ass man receiving a paycheck and then taking part of that check and handing it back to his boss. But I digress. That's just a goofy, funny little thing.
It's a goofy thing. And honestly, if he wanted to lie about it, he could say, "I wanted the emote on 2 accounts."
Yeah,
better
there's so
liar.
many better excuses. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was the first main point that I had brought up, and so the reason that I was looking at this specific point here was the selling, offering to sell, trading, bartering, or transferring bits to other users to Twitch in exchange for a real or virtual.
Oh, I talked about this. This is actually the thing I talked about in the last video. This is just the terms of service that says, hey, money laundering is illegal.
Virtual currency. Now, the reason I use this is because, and I actually didn't know this at the time, but the assumption was based on the the verbiage that they used in their discussion. It implied that they were trying to get the best return for the streamer, which would end up being better for Kronos when it turned. Now, I did just find out recently that it was established for that hype train that the moderators were going to be receiving half of that hype train's proceeds.
Oh my god.
That was announced
Oh.
publicly. Matter of fact, it's on the
Oh, wait! Then Pirate Software is actually innocent. All of the mods now have a 100% invested interest in doing this. And yes, you can argue that Pirate Software knew that and is gonna and made it so like that so the mods always pick up the slack so it continues, but I mean, bro, bro, that actually creates a legal boundary separation between him and this. So, in the eyes of the law, but not of the people, this will probably make him 100% not banned and not guilty. But it doesn't matter. In the eyes of the people, doing this just makes you now even more guilty. So, GG reputation, if he had any at this point left.
Discord, I now have access and screenshots of that message. And so Kronos, alongside the other moderators, knew full well that they would be receiving half the money that was being sent here. So now that 80% share makes a lot more sense that they were discussing it, because that meant that they were going to get more money back after giving it to the hype train.
Yeah, but those returns actually I think are with respect to the transaction value of bits, because there's an exchange rate. The return on the actual purchase of bits versus what the streamer gets, because the streamer gets 100% of the bits when they're directly donated. The difference is if they're donated through an extension, which I think they were talking about extensions. If they're donated like through the soundboards and things like that,
Sure.
then the extension maker obtains a portion of that.
Is that the 20% or the 18%, 82%?
That's whichever percent. I can't remember exactly the percent, but that's where the extra cut comes from. Otherwise, the bits are a one-to-one donation.
Wait, so are you telling me these sound extensions are literally just credit card scanners, but in Twitch form? Holy!
So if you donate 100 bits after purchase,
I
to
did
a
not
streamer,
know
they
that.
get 100 bits. Period.
Interesting. Okay, so
Because you already paid that transaction fee.
that makes sense. So then in turn, well, I think we can then chalk that up. So the reason that the bit percentage that they were talking about was brought up is because they were using text-to-speech. Would that have been a
I
third party?
believe so.
Okay.
But then for the other terms here, if you want me to explain these.
Yes,
like
please.
the real or virtual currencies. This pertains to something like Robux. That's real or virtual currencies, like any of those virtual currencies.
So like giving
WoW
bits
Gold.
to a creator in exchange for Robux.
You're giving me bits for WoW Gold. Can't
Okay.
do that.
Again, so the main reason that I was focusing on is like for that real
Yes, see? That's money laundering, by the way. Even though in very stupid sense. So, this instantaneously tells me that this woman, whatever she did at Twitch, probably was not attaining to legalese.
currency. So I would
So what she's giving us, the information she's now giving us is like secondhand. There's this situation in businesses, in big companies, where you sometimes need to explain stuff to people. So you explain it in a completely not actually real life functioning way to these people, but it's good enough to understand what's currently happening. But that knowledge is not really transmissible up the ladder. So she's kind of seemingly currently, I would say, maybe doing right that.
say what you're arguing here, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that even though Kronos at this point understood that he would be getting a return of the money that was donated through the hype train, whether it be through bits, donations, etc., subs, even with him knowing that fact and then donating to the stream, in his head, or the way that he's understanding it, or maybe that pirate, or, you know, just for the hypothetical, they know that they are donating these bits, and in return, they're going to be receiving half of the funds that come back, or as that's dispersed among the moderators. Even with that kind of like thought process, that doesn't change the fact that at a fundamental level on the Twitch service, it was not a direct exchange for finances.
That's what I'm worried about. Like, that's
Okay.
the way that Twitch should enforce it, but that's not how this is written.
Okay.
That's the massive thing about
Again, they're currently trying to apply a rule that's literally intended to stop money laundering to something that it's not that it's not even meant to actually look at.
the terms of service. These are the things that I was constantly fighting while I was at the company, because they need to be more explicit about this. Because yes, they are making these bits donations in lieu of a payout later on. Like, they know they're going to get paid back, and not just reimbursed. They're getting a paycheck for this work. You
Right.
know, they're getting money on top of buying these bits. They're essentially getting bribed to do this. So to me, that's illicit. To me, that should absolutely be a bannable offense. But Twitch is not going to enforce it because they were not using bits to exchange directly for money.
Even
Like,
if this is like, okay, well, we'll work around the rule. There's no, well, we're not planning to go forward and like edit the rule to make it more specific because they prefer conciseness over covering.
they didn't.
This is not a rule that these people don't understand it. This is not a rule that even covers what they're talking about. This rule is perfect because it's literally only meant against money laundering, not whatever the fuck is happening here.
They didn't send 10,000 bits for an Apple gift card.
That's
It's
all
meant-
this is planned.
If you want to fight something, okay, this is what you fight here. If you want to see if Twitch should ban if they should ban pirate software, okay? Did he scam his viewers by creating fake hype? Because you cannot scam people by creating fakeness. That is ill against the law in pretty much every country. You are not allowed to create a fake hype, a fake demand, a fake need for something. And in this case, that directly does apply, actually, to extending a hype train and pretending that people are interested in it. And we need to see if that is illegal on Twitch. Because it's illegal, a form of that is at least always illegal in most countries.
Cover.
It is seriously messed up.
Okay, well, totally
I
fair.
genuinely hope that I am wrong.
Maybe I need to read the soliciting rule that Tectone broke, and then he spazzed out that he doesn't know why he's banned, even though he broke the soliciting rule. Maybe that actually covers this, but I kind of doubt it, because this is not exactly soliciting in that sense. It kind of comes close, though.
The way that this is written and the way that this has been enforced, unless there is an actual transaction taking place, there is no way that this would be enforceable.
Okay.
It really does suck, because I completely agree with you. That is how it should be enforced. There was collusion there was a payout here.
Yes,
Yeah.
the thing that makes it worse for me isn't that that is happening. It's just how that ends up incentivizing a viewer, someone that is potentially willing to donate, how that impacts their psyche when it goes
Yes.
into, do I donate to this person? Because
Yes, but that would be a different rule.
that is just like, even with me when I was starting out my channel, it is enticing to pump my numbers up, whether it be through
Yes.
ads, whether it be through like any sort of type of viewership, because when you approach a number where, like, for subscribers, you hit 100K, you have a check mark next to your name, you have 100,000 views on a video that's gone out in a couple hours, people are more incentivized to click on it because of that, you know, appealing to the popularity of something. There's kind of
Yes.
like a guaranteed buy-in that people understand, oh, this person's reputable, and you can see that proof by other people being willing to follow, listen, donate, etc.
Yeah, not only that, but oh, does this mean that we can bot hype trains now to keep them going in perpetuity?
Yes, this is the real thing, by the way. This is why YouTube is actually debating removing YouTube video dates. Because let's be honest, I don't click on a lot of videos that kind of seem okay just because they're like, I don't know, a year old or 2 years old. Because I think maybe this information is no longer applicable. Maybe the stuff has changed. I don't want to click on something that's old. That is how it works.
And then they also are rewarded. The viewers are rewarded with the Cap Infinite emote, with other rewards along the way. And now there's also a popular, like, he got a news article when he broke the 106 world record. There's a lot to gain by also stimulating this. Good to hear that from someone who has that experience with Twitch. I'm glad it's not just on
No,
the side.
we're on the same page. Like, I regularly raged at this company. I was one of the few people who is actually embedded in streaming. Like, I was one of the few people who was a moderator for heavier partners and also a regular streamer on the platform. And it's things like this where, like, you need to clearly outline what is going on here. Like, what do these terms mean? Because people are going to exploit the system.
The engage in viewership tampering, and then you say such as. So the way that I read that is those are examples and not fully encompassing the entirety of what that plans to cover.
Yes.
Because again, from my perspective, when I was first reading it, I was going broad. And so in my head, when I see viewership inflation, that for me also at that time included a hype train's level, because you would assume the assumption is,
Yeah, that's a reasonable assumption, to be fair.
those are the viewers that are donating in, and that isn't the moderators, that isn't, you know, working together to do that.
I wish. Part of viewership tampering is anything that can play into your stream analytics. So we're talking things like chat activity. Like, that is another metric that can be tampered with.
Is revenue from
isn't-
donations not considered?
No, because it's not viewership.
Interesting.
Oh, that actually reveals that YouTube's doing the same as Kick. Kick has we now know, it's confirmed that Kick has a thing where it actually gives you a payout depending on how fast your chat is. By the way, which was a completely fucking autistic metric. But because, you know, you can have the two people with 10K people watching, and they're real people on both sides. But one is like, you know, some kind of fatigue person, and the other one is, you know, kind of just chilling and nothing's really happening. One chat is gonna be faster. The other one is not gonna be as fast. And you know, that's a completely stupid metric. So Twitch does the same. This confirms, by the way. I don't think well, at least I haven't heard that they ever confirmed that.
That's just straight revenue. Yeah.
And so correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like the main reason that it's super focused, it has nothing to do with revenue. So even like a hype train level, as like we were kind of looking at, I think that was more from a consumer perspective. It sounds like the reason we're so focused on the viewership counts is because that's coming from a
Viewership cares
brand.
because ad revenue.
Yes. So that's going to look bad, and that's going to end up with Twitch losing money if they don't enforce, like, you know, making sure people aren't botting views, because then those aren't actual returns on advertisers.
This can make
Yep.
Twitch lose their own monetization from advertisers. This can make them lose ad
Yes.
partners.
That makes sense. In 10.2 here, this is against the terms of service, and you will not impersonate any person or entity, falsely claim an affiliation with any person or entity, access the Twitch services accounts of others without permission, etc., misrepresent the source, identity, or content of information transmitted via the Twitch services, or perform any other similar fraudulent activity. So my perspective on this, my understanding, the reason that I had brought this up is because Kronos, who I would consider at this point a public figure, because of he has his own socials, he is the lead moderator for Pirate. It was their stream, so I think for all points considered, the viewership of that treats him as a public figure as well. He
Not necessarily. I don't know if that's true or not, but I don't think necessarily. He's just a mod.
He had an alternate account that
Also, I'm not sure this applies. Impersonate. What did you agree that you will comply with which terms will not impersonate any person or entity falsely. This is also just anti-scamming shit. Well,
he misrepresented as
at least this one I'm not that sure of, though. At
someone
least
who knew Kronos, who spoke highly of Pirate as if, they were a viewer and they donated in that sense. And so technically, yes, it is a false affiliation with Kronos because this is Kronos himself. He faked having a friend. But the more, that's funny. But the more specific thing, right, was the misrepresenting the source identity or content of information transmitted via the Twitch services. He misrepresented, he faked being somebody else.
Yeah, and sadly, this tends to only work the opposite direction. So lying upward is what you get in trouble for.
Yeah. In this sense, he did not meet. Okay, so this is more or less supposed to be in broad terms. It's like you're not supposed to pretend you're Obama. Okay, you cannot drone strike a hospital in Africa and then say, "Oh, look at me, I'm Obama." Now, close, but not exactly.
Lying downward, you do not get in trouble for. And they see that as trying to protect your real identity. So it's not hiding who you are because I'm a moderator and I can't let people know I'm a moderator. They see that as, yes, you want to not have people know that you're a moderator because then they might try to cause problems because you're a moderator.
They're not looking at it as I'm obfuscating where this money is coming from to keep this hype train alive. Because again, this is also, admittedly, this is a niche thing in comparison to Twitch's like general audience, but they're more specifically focused on some people don't want their identity and so, I mean, the rule is in place not to avoid potential fraudulent activity by pretending to be somebody else. It is to obfuscate to protect the identities of people who don't want to be harassed.
Man, I really just want to see, honestly, the Blizzard stories about him browsing Reddit.
Yeah, the fraud.
Intentions of these TOS guidelines as opposed to how I interpreted them.
This was the platform services yearbook that they did 1 year. This was 2013.
2013, there it is. Okay.
I'm not sure how many of these they produced because they were rather expensive, but this is us right there.
Okay.
Oh! Boys, it's gonna be good. We'll be eating good tomorrow, probably. Anyway, that was Quinty on 10 out of 10 Music School. Bye!